All right, good afternoon, and Senator Duckworth is on her way, but we wanted to get started. So, folks, and I'm joined, of course, by Senators Murray and Booker. They and Senator Duckworth are the three lead sponsors of this legislation. Now, it's a very sad day for millions of Americans who want to become parents but struggle with infertility, because today nearly every Republican just blocked a bill that would have protected people's access to IVF. Protecting IVF should have been the easiest yes vote the Senate has taken all year. Republicans cannot say they're a pro-family, but then vote against protecting IVF. But that's exactly what they did. Protecting IVF was not in any sense a show vote. It was a show us who you are vote. And today, Senate Republicans showed us just who they were. They are against supporting and protecting IVF. The contrast is glaring. Here in the Senate, Democrats are talking about protecting women's rights. But a couple of blocks away, Trump and Republicans are talking about protecting tax cuts for the very wealthy. It's so shameful that things have sunk this low. Just a few years ago, it would have been unthinkable, unimaginable even, that access to a safe and widely used reproductive service like IVF would be put at risk. And yet look where America is today. Look what the Alabama Supreme Court did a few months ago. Look at some of the views of some of the MAGA right people on the courts. And it is justified to worry about the future of IVF. And today's vote makes it even more worrisome. And even the bill, Senator Cruz, feeling the heat of being up for re-election, tried to come up with sort of a sham bill. But even that was opposed by some of these extreme groups that have real say over the Republican Party. Now that the hard right has finished eliminating Roe, they're setting their sights on IVF. Look what happened yesterday in Indianapolis. Look at the statements that have come out from major conservative organizations like the Heritage Foundation, the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, and some of our major religious organizations say now that they should oppose IVF. So this worry is real, and this vote was necessary so that we could show America where everyone was, and hopefully the people who voted against it will feel that pressure. But make no mistake about it, the anti-abortion movement is laying the groundwork to go after IVF next. By blocking the Right to IVF Act, Senate Republicans have fallen in line with MAGA extremists who have made it clear IVF is their next target. It's appalling, it's un-American, it's deeply hurtful for anyone out there who wants to become a parent but has struggled with infertility. We should be working to help those families, but Senate Republicans just left them out in the cold in favor of extremists. What a mean-spirited message to send to the American people. And I have to say, this is personal to me. I have a beautiful one-year-old grandson because of IVF, the miracle of IVF. So I know what it means when families need IVF and struggle to make sure that it works and then see the beauty of a new child in their family. By blocking the IVF Act, Senate Republicans have fallen in line, as I said, with the MAGA extremists. Republicans cannot say they're pro-family and then vote against protecting access to IVF. Senator Cruz and Britt even organized a statement yesterday signed by all Republican senators saying that they, of course, support IVF. But they weren't going to vote on a bill that protects it. It's easy as could be to see through that one. Easy to see through that one. They're feeling the heat, they're worried, but they're afraid to buck the MAGA right and truly protect IVF. We were sent here to vote on legislation and pass laws, not just issue statements that aren't worth the paper that they are printed on. It shows you how Republicans are twisting themselves in knots, trying to run away from their bad record on reproductive freedom, but at the same time, they've been taken hostage by the MAGA right. So today's a sad, sad day. But we're going to keep fighting. We're going to fight to preserve this vital right. Senator Murray.
Senator Duckworth,
Sorry.
Oh, Senator Duckworth is here.
I snuck in on you.
Go ahead, Senator Duckworth. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
No, it's okay. I'm in the middle of NDAA markup, sir. I snuck in on you. Well, hi everyone. Look, I don't have it in me to beat around the bush today. I am angry, really, really angry. For months now, Republicans have been running to cable news shows, telling every camera in sight that, just like their ringmaster Donald Trump, no one cares more about women than they do, that no one cares more about defending our rights than they do, and that all they want in this scary post-Alabama ruling reality is to defend Americans' access to IVF. Well, that's bullshit. Just minutes ago, the GOP refused to help me pass my Right to IVF Act, which would have enshrined into law the simple standard that no hopeful parent or doctor can be criminalized for IVF. If Republicans actually cared as much about protecting IVF as they do about protecting Donald Trump's poll numbers, this would have been a simple yes vote. If they actually wanted to find real solutions to this living nightmare that countless Americans are facing, they would have joined me in passing this obviously good piece of legislation. And they'd stop trying to pass sham, scammy bills that aim to mislead voters. Bills that are more like worthless fire insurance policies written by the arsonists who fanned the flames in the first place than they are real legislative solutions. When someone shows you who they are the first time, believe it. That's how the saying goes. Well, Republicans have showed us who they are 1, 2, 3, 4,000 times. When the rubber meets the road and we ask not just for empty words on Twitter, but for their vote to protect IVF, they just don't have it in them to even pretend to care about the women in this country. As a mom who struggled with infertility for years, as a parent who needed to IVF to have my 2 beautiful little girls, all I can say to my Republican colleagues in this moment is, how dare you? And I wish you luck as you try to excuse this vote to every one of your constituents back home who are facing the heart-wrenching struggle of trying to have their own little girl or boy to swaddle and cuddle and love, and are terrified that you might have just snatched their dreams of a family away from them. Shame on you.
Well done. Senator Murray, if you have to go, it's okay.
I have to go back. I'm sorry.
Well,
He's got a lot of very heavy responsibilities.
I share the anger that you just heard because Republicans just voted against IVF for all the world to see on the record. So let's put to rest once and for all the idea that Republicans actually care about protecting IVF access. And while we're at it, let's put to rest this utter fiction that their own bill does anything to support IVF. I want to set the record perfectly straight here. The issue with the Republicans' bill is worse than saying it doesn't do enough to protect IVF. It is that their bill does nothing to meaningfully protect IVF from the very real threats that lawmakers and anti-abortion extremists in their party are making all over this country. Their bill would allow states to regulate IVF out of existence. Their bill is silent on whether parents should be allowed to have clinics dispose of unused embryos, something that is a common and necessary part of the IVF process. And it's not just their bills. Republicans themselves are silent on this issue too, which is very telling. I asked Senator Cruz directly on the floor yesterday, do you support letting parents have unused embryos disposed of? Funny thing happened. He said on the floor he'd answer the question. He never did. He spoke about what some laws in some states are, but I'll tell you, he never actually said what he supported. He never said what he believes should be law. So I'll ask a question, and this is a question every Republican should have to answer, especially every Republican like Ted Cruz who pretends they want to protect IVF. Would you let parents dispose of unused embryos? That's it. That is the question. As a matter of law, do you think parents should be allowed to dispose of embryos? We are waiting. Now, Senator Cruz was not willing to actually give a direct answer, but his record actually is pretty cut and dried. He supported a constitutional amendment to establish fetal personhood as the law of the land. That means a national abortion ban, beginning at conception, that says an embryo should have the exact same rights as a human being. It just doesn't get any clearer than that, especially not after the vote that we just had today, which put every Republican on the record on IVF. Republicans are going to keep trying to fearmonger, but it is very hard to hide a fire when everyone can see the flames. We saw what happened in Alabama, and we saw the chaos that it caused. We saw what happened yesterday in Indianapolis, a prominent conservative group voting to fully, explicitly oppose IVF. and we saw how Republicans voted today. Everyone in America knows the threat to IVF is real, and it is not going away because it's convenient for Republicans. And Democrats, I just want you to know, we're not going away either. We're going to keep fighting to protect IVF. We're going to make sure everyone has access to medical care and make sure that no politician stands in their way. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Booker.
So this is an astonishing day for me, and it should be an astonishing day for Americans all across our country from all political backgrounds, independents, Democrats, and Republicans. IVF treatment is wildly supported by America, and yet by a very small, narrow band of radical right-wing judges, legislators, and others who want to impress their values and views upon the rest of America, who want to ban this practice, who want to prevent thousands, hundreds of thousands of families from having the joy of the miracle of birth. Today was an astonishing day, and people should see it for what it was. The congressional Republicans do not want to defend IVF from the clear attacks on the practice. This is a moment which is a binary choice. Do you support IVF or you don't? Do you support families having access to this incredible process that allows children to be born or not? And today we saw clearly that most of the Senate Republicans are not willing to stand up and protect IVF treatment in the United States of America. And it's worse. They voted to block military families who want to freeze their sperm or their eggs before they go off to their military service, put themselves and their bodies at risk, often sacrificing their even ability to have children because of injuries or their military engagement. They denied the opportunity to expand IVF treatment to more families in the United States of America who can't afford it by stopping insurance companies from expanding coverage. And so this is clear. We have seen an assault in this country by a radical court that is starting to slowly erode reproductive rights in this country. We saw it with Dobbs. We saw it with one Trump-appointed judge, what he did with mifepristone. We saw it in Alabama with IVF. The choice is clear for Americans. Do they want to support people who preserve and protect rights and expand opportunities, or people that are trying to erode rights and access to reproductive care?
Thank you, Senator Booker. Questions on this subject? Yes.
You held several votes of reproductive health. Are there more coming?
Yes. Stay tuned. There are more coming. This is an issue so important, not just to us, but to the women and men of America, that we're not going to stop fighting, and you're going to see some more things coming and more votes coming. Yes.
Republicans are saying that they're not cooperating on these because you're not reaching across the aisle. You're not looking for something that they're willing to support. I mean, are there any plans to kind of go through markup, bring a legislation to committee that Republicans could get on board with?
Very simple answer. We gave them a vote on the motion to proceed. If they would have voted yes, they could have made amendments. They could have put their own legislation on the floor. They refused. They're afraid to vote on this issue, plain and simple. Yes.
Schumer, how do you respond to former President Trump trying to downplay this issue, telling Republicans in his meetings today that abortion is now a states' right issue that he doesn't want to legislate federally?
People know what Donald Trump has said all along. He has bragged about appointing the justices who voted for Dobbs and repealed Roe. I don't think American women have any trust in President Trump in terms of preserving reproductive rights. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to answer that.
Patty, yes.
Women in every state in this country are Americans. They should have the same rights.
Oops, sorry. Including the right to bump into people. Yes.
Senator, would Democrats consider a perhaps less costly version of this package that doesn't include the insurance?
We believe our proposal is the correct proposal. And again, if Republicans were ready to vote on amendments, we gave them that opportunity. All they had to do was vote on the motion to proceed, which allows them to do amendments and do votes. You know what's going on. We all know what's going on. They're afraid to vote on anything. that might protect women's rights. They're afraid of the Susan B. Anthony League. They're afraid of some of the right-wing religious groups. They're afraid of the Heritage Foundation. Okay? Yes.
The AI bill that went on the floor last night that was blocked, do you have any plans to use the same kind of floor time to try to pass one of these bills, the AI bill or the Kids Online Safety Act?
Well, it was amazing that one person blocked that bill, which is so needed. It prevents AI from being used to use false nudity on people, and it's gross. It's disgusting. We hope that person who blocked the bill will rethink their opposition. Yes.
Vote on ask you a bill on the floor.
Two things. Yesterday or this week, the Southern Baptist Convention voted against IVF a day before the Senate Republicans block legislation to protect IVF. And there's also reporting in Rolling Stone, New York Times about Justice Alito saying that he agrees the nation needs to return to godliness. Are you concerned that sectarian religious views are infringing on women's reproductive rights?
I think there are right-wing views of many different types that are infringing on women's rights. Absolutely. And so, you know, we're going to keep fighting. And just in answer to your question about AI, this week, the Commerce Committee, the HISGAC Committee reported out a bill. The Commerce Committee is considering bills. We're going to keep at AI, and we may find other ways to pass that legislation if that person doesn't relent. Okay? Thank you.
Chuck, I just want to make one
Last
more point
question
while you're
for
here.
Corey.
I just want to make one more point. Senator Schumer, I want to thank him. He's putting bills on the floor that are clear choices that are supported by the majority of Americans, whether it's these AI bills or going forward, or especially around reproductive rights. These are not controversial with mainstream Americans. Senator Schumer is pushing an agenda that is supported not by Democrats, but supported by Americans, and I'm grateful he's going to continue that kind of leadership.
And by the way, one thing I left out, I love Milwaukee. It is a great city.